Many people have nicknames, and a lot of times those nicknames are understandable. For instance, you may have a blonde-haired friend whose nickname is Sandy. You may also have a friend whose nickname is Stinky, and you probably don't want to know the reason why that's the case. We read about names in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1. In fact, Solomon writes that a good name is better than precious ointment. Then the second half of that verse says, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Now, those two phrases almost seem like they don't go together, but when we look at the verse as a whole as to what Solomon's really trying to teach us there through the Holy Spirit, then I think we'll see what they really mean. First of all, in the first half of the verse, from what I understand in the original language, there's actually kind of a play on words, because the Hebrew word for name and the Hebrew word for ointment are very similar to one another. And he's talking about that a good name is better than a precious ointment. But what does the second half of the verse have to do with it when he says the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth? That almost seems bizarre. That almost seems like it doesn't belong in the Bible. But when you put it together with the fact that he's talking about a name, here's what I think unlocks the understanding to what he's really talking about. The day you're born is the day you're given your name. That's the day your name appears on your birth certificate. And the day you die is the day that your name appears on your death certificate. What happens in between your birth certificate and your death certificate? What happens between those two places where your name is involved? What kind of name do you make for yourself? What kind of name do you build for yourself? A good name is better than precious ointment. And, I know I talked about a guy named Stinky earlier, but sometimes, in all seriousness, we hear someone's name mentioned and nothing positive comes to our mind. And we also realize how much that person's behavior made that name stink. Well, what am I doing with my name? The name I was given at birth. What will that name look like when I die? What will that name communicate, and what will that name really say? And what will people really remember? A good name is better than precious ointment.